For some time now, I've been wanting to take a closer look at the Craftsman 10-inch miter saw and finally had the opportunity to do so. Craftsman produces several variants of their 10-inch miter, and this particular model has several very interesting features that I'm going to show you. However, it did come from the factory with a few issues that I will point out in this video. So let's take a look at this model of the Craftsman 10-inch miter saw. Let's take a look at the specifications for the Craftsman model number 407530. The motor runs out at about 4,800 RPMs with no load. The blade is a 10-inch 60-tooth Craftsman carbide blade. It weighs in at 45 pounds. The miter will do 50 degrees left and 50 degrees right. Cross-cut maximum height is 3.5 inches by 11.5 inches. Crosscut maximum width is 2.5 inches by 12.5 inches. Miter 45 degrees right and left is 3.5 inches by 8 inches maximum cut. Bevel left is 1 3/4 inches by 11.5 inches. 45 degree miter and 45 degree bevel left is 1 3/4 inches by 8 inches. Crown molding nested maximum is 5 3/4 inches. Base molding against the fence is 3 1/2 inches. It does come with dust control, does have a motor brake, does come with a wrench and a clamp, does have a laser that we'll look at later on, doesn't come with a stand, does have a 1-year warranty, and at the time of this video it was $229. Let's take a look at the right hand side of the Craftsman. You have the on-off switch here for the laser, power control for the saw itself, onboard storage for your wrench. You do have onboard storage for your power cord as well. You do have a nice handle back here that is very well centered and balanced, so if you want to lift it by one hand you can. And of course you do have dust control right here. This is your height control. I'm going to show you a little bit more about that a little bit later on. And then this is the control for locking the saw down for storage. All you have to do is pull that out. Then this lifts up for normal use. When you're ready to store, push that down and then push this back into place. Also, this has got some good extensions. I'm going to show you more about the extensions in just a moment. Let's take a look at the depth control for the Craftsman. And I do want to point out first, I've taken this power cord and put it on the other side of this bolt, this adjustment screw, so that you can see this better. Normally it should be on the other side. So this little lever right here, it's dark colored so it's hard to see. So I'll pull it down like this, okay? And all you have to do is pull it down to this point and then bring this down, and you can see how that is your depth control right there. So just by turning this knob one way or the other, that controls your depth of cut for the Craftsman. The Craftsman has extension arms on both the left and right hand side. In order to unlock them, all you have to do is pull up this lever, slide this out to the position that you want, lock it down into place. If you know you're going to be doing multiple cuts of the same length, all you have to do is bring this into position, measure from the blade to this little stop right here, get the position that you want, lock it down. Then you can put your workpiece in here, bring it up flush to this little stop, and make multiple cuts over and over again without having to remeasure. Okay? Then when you're done, unlock, flip this down, slide it back in, lock it into place. So that's the extension arm system on the Craftsman. Anytime you have extension arms for a miter saw, you want to make sure that they're level or flush with the main table of the miter saw. I've just taken one of my clamps that I know is true and square, and I placed it across the table, and both the left and the right hand side extensions are perfectly level or flush with the table on the Craftsman. Let's take a look at the left hand side of the Craftsman. This knob controls the tension on the bar to keep the saw from sliding back and forth either while you're moving it or storing it. Of course, blade guard, simple control mechanism on the blade guard. Right there is your controls for your laser, which I'm going to show you a little bit later on. Does come with a clamp that can be put on either the left or right hand side. This fence can be moved out so you can do your bevel cuts, and of course, just as on the other side, you do have an extension right here. So that's the left-hand side of the Craftsman. Whether you're looking at storage or a transportation, the footprint of a power tool is something you always need to take into consideration. And that's no exception with the Craftsman, so let's take a look. With the extension arms all the way out on both sides, you're looking at just under 40 inches. If we place them back in against the body or the housing, you're looking at about 22 to 23.5 inches. The front to back on this saw is just about 30.5 inches. If the saw is in the upright position, the handle peaks out at about 23.5 inches. With it in the down position, the handle is only 15 inches off the table, but you're going to have to take the dust bag off if you're trying to keep that same height, because with the dust bag in place, you're looking at somewhere around 22 inches, as I recall. This also has a very unique support system or travel system. You notice you have two different tubes at two different heights. There's the front one, or the upper, and then there's the lower one. And they've done this in an attempt to reduce the extension out the back. So again, front to back, this is right at 30.5 inches. So that's the footprint on the Craftsman miter saw. Now I want to show you why you should always check your alignment, even though it's coming directly from the factory. So I've got my little square up against the back fence, and as I bring the blade down, you notice I've got clearance in the back. It's got plenty of clearance. But if I bring it all the way out to the full distance here, then the blade actually touches my square, all right? So the next thing we want to look at is, compared to the miter, is it going straight? So if I bring it down here, I can run it all the way back, and it looks like it's pretty straight. So without doing much more investigation, I believe that this fence, and I also did this on the other side, this fence and this fence are not square or perpendicular to this slot right here. Also, you'll notice from the factory, this blade is right up against this red plate right here, and it can't be adjusted any further, maybe a fraction of an inch somewhere, okay? So it's significantly off-center to this slot. So always check the alignment from the factory on any power tool that you get that needs alignment. Blade alignment for the Craftsman is pretty good from the factory. At 90 degrees, it's almost dead on, and the same thing at 45 degrees. So from the factory, the Craftsman blade alignment to the table is pretty good. Let's take a look at the bevel control on the Craftsman. This lever right here controls the locking mechanism. As you can see on this left-hand side, there's a little bolt that you can use to set or adjust. This prevents it from going past full 90 degrees. You have a little indicator here which is a little bit adjustable. In order to get to a full 45 degrees, you have to pull out on this little red button, the position that I have it in there. And then when you have it pressed back in, it doesn't let you go quite as far. In the 45 degree mark, I did test it with my speed square, and it did come out really close to 45 degrees. So that's it for the bevel control for the Craftsman. Let's take a look at the miter system on the Craftsman. Of course, there's the little gauge right there, and the little indicator which can be adjusted. This is your detent bypass, that little red button right there. And then, of course, there's your lever for lifting up and bypassing detents individually. And you've got a little lever on this side that locks it into place when you press it down. And there is the miter scale on the right-hand side. And I want to show you something else about this, so I'm going to switch this shot around. One thing I wanted to point out to you, from the factory, if you can see that little raised area or bubbled area at the back of 31.6, this came from the factory this way. And then you can see more bubbling back here. So it looks like this is some kind of metallic tape or thin metal with a piece of adhesive or some form of adhesive holding it down to the table. But I wanted to point that out to you. Let's take a look at the miter mechanism on the Craftsman. So like many others, there's a little lever right here. So all you have to do is lift this up and then slide it to the position that you want it. If it's not at a detent, a standard position, all you have to do is lock it down with this lever that I showed you earlier on the right-hand side. If you're close to a detent, all you have to do is move it back and you hear it pop into place. Even though you're going into a detent, you always want to make sure you lock it down. So I'm going to take the lock off. If I lift up on this lever here and press in and then let go, now all the detents can be bypassed and I don't have to hold it with my thumb. This mechanism is perhaps a little bit stiffer than I've seen with some of the others. When you want to release this, all you have to do is pull up on this and let go. It'll pop out. So there it is, locked. Lift up on this little lever here and it is unlocked. So that is the miter mechanism on the Craftsman. Some time ago I uploaded a video titled How to Get the Most Out of Your Miter Saw. If you're new to miter saws, you might want to check it out because there's a lot of really good tips and tricks in that video, and I put the link for that video in the description below. Let's take a look at the laser for the Craftsman. I pulled it all the way out to the 12-inch cut, and as you can see, there's the laser. It's just to the left of the blade, and it's staying pretty square and pretty true to the blade all the way back. Even though I've got pretty bright lighting in here, I can see this easily. I don't know if it shows up too well with the camera, but it seems to be a pretty decent laser. I'll show you the controls on this in just a moment. The controls for the laser on the Craftsman are at the very top of the blade. This little dial on top controls how far the laser beam is or the line is from the blade, and this little dial controls whether it's square or not to the blade. Took me a minute or two to get it lined up from the factory, but otherwise a very simple, easy to use mechanism for the laser for the Craftsman. Let's take a look at the noise levels on the Craftsman. Now you notice this does have a brake on it, but as you can see right there, it comes in right at about, let me see, there you go, right at about 100 decibels. And if you look at this chart right here, 100 decibels is right there. So always make certain that you have good hearing protection as well as eye protection anytime you're using this power tool or any other loud power tool. I hope I've been able to provide you with enough insight into the specifications and the features as well as the flaws of this miter saw to help you to identify if it meets your requirements. I've also uploaded a number of other table saw, miter saw, and drill press comparison videos and have placed their links in the description below, so make sure to check them out. If you found this video of value, please press like. If you're not already a subscriber, I would love to have you as a subscriber, and as always, good luck on your projects. Let's take a look at the right-hand side of the Craftsman. No, this is the left-hand side. Left, right, left, right. Let's take a look at the left-hand side of the Craftsman. Of course, this little tension knob controls the tension and keeps the... Anytime you're using extensions on your table saw, you want to make... Oh no, it's a miter saw. Miter saw, not table saw. Miter saw. Let's take a look at the miter mechanism on the